Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, I would like to share a personal experience of mine with you all with the hope that it helps somebody who may be on a similar journey as I have been for the last 3+ years. It was a bit of a back and forth in my head on whether I should do this video or not. And it's coming from a place of, I don't want to ever take the glory that is God's. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a person of faith and I have a deep relationship with God. It's not perfect. It's something I keep working on every day to continue to grow more in my relationship with Him and intimately and being consistent with spending time with Him. And I've had this conversation over and over again with God to say, please, I would like to share my experience, and it's not coming from a place of I want to make it seem as if it's anything I did or was my glory, but ultimately I want to help someone. But please, all of the glory, you know my heart, you see my heart, it comes to you at the end of the day. Okay, so I just wanted to set that context and let's jump right into it. In June 2021, I was diagnosed with multiple uterine fibroids. Yes, I actually have fibroids. I'm sure you would never, a lot of people, in fact, I don't think anyone would ever guess except I tell you, because outwardly or physically, there's no indication that I have it. And let me take you way back to how I discovered that I have fibroids. I think it was in April 2021, I started spotting, and this was outside of my monthly cycle. I don't usually spot. That was the first one for me. And when that happened the first time, I was like, what's going on here? I couldn't make sense of it, but I didn't think anything deeply about it. And then I think it happened again the following week or 2 weeks after. And I was like, again, still not within my monthly flow. It was outside of my monthly flow. And I was like, this can't be normal. But again, I didn't feel any symptoms. There was nothing wrong with me. It was just spotting, and the spotting didn't last beyond a day. And it didn't appear serious, but I knew that something was not right. After the second one, I didn't spot again. So I thought nothing of it, but it was still somewhere at the back of my mind that that incident that happened then was not normal. And so in June, I went to the hospital. I can't remember now what I went to the hospital for, because I hardly fall sick. I have for the past how many years I don't fall ill. I have been doing a great job of ensuring that I'm eating right, meals with high nutrients, with enough sufficient vitamins and minerals that my body needs, and making sure that I'm getting my immunity up, and I rarely fall ill. And even the common colds, which I used to have way back then, I hardly get it now. Before, I used to be scared to be around people who had colds because there was a high probability that I was going to get it. But I think over the years, as I continue to be intentional about my nutrition and boosting my immunity levels, I'm less susceptible to even getting the cold when I'm around people who have it. And yes, back to my story. I really can't remember what I think I went for a test. I can't remember. Just maybe a routine checkup or a test for something. And then I decided to bring up the spotting incident that I had experienced 2 months prior to that date. And I mentioned to the doctor, and then he says, "Are you pregnant?" I said, "No, I'm not pregnant." In fact, this reminds me, my experience with 2 doctors in that hospital was distasteful. It was just not it, right? And yeah, I'll get into that a little bit later. So he asked me, I said no. And then he kept on going round in circles, he kept on going around in circles, asking weird questions without asking the direct question. He was still coming back to the same question of, "Are you pregnant?" but asking it in some weird ways and going in corners. And I can't remember the exact words he used then, but I remember asking him to say, is there a reason why you are asking me these things, these different questions? I've told you that I'm not pregnant. And he goes, "Oh, I needed to ask in a different way because I've had people who come here and say they're pregnant and then who come here and say they are not pregnant. And eventually, when I keep probing, we will eventually find out that they are pregnant." Then I said to him, I said, "I'm not a teenager. I'm not a child. I'm not a young adult. I'm not someone who is trying to hide her pregnancy status from a family or whoever. I'm a full-blown adult, fully capable and responsible of raising a child. So I have no reason to hide or that I'm pregnant. Or is it that I don't know when I'm pregnant? Like, do I not know the things that I need to be doing to be pregnant? I've told you I'm not pregnant and I am not pregnant." And then he says, "Okay, I'm going to send you for a scan so that we can check certain things and rule out certain things." And so I went off to do the scan, still within the hospital. It was a scan to check whether I'm not sure I even knew what the scan was until I went to meet the person at the scan place, and I think it was the one who said the scan we're going to do is fibroids. Ooh, I was like, okay. And then I didn't get to do it immediately because they said, "Oh, you have to wait till your bladder is full, till you feel like you're about to pee." That was quite some wait, because before I left home, I made sure I peed. I generally don't like using public bathrooms. So as much as possible, I try not to use the bathroom when I'm outside of my house. And so I waited for some time for my bladder to get full, and I eventually had the scan. In fact, during the scan, I think the guy who was conducting it mentioned that I had fibroids. Ooh. It was not the news I wanted to hear, right? I was like, fibroids from where? And then after the scan, I was sent to see the chief consultant in the hospital. I think he's a gynecologist. And then I walked into his office, an elderly man. If I can place his age, it would be in his late 60s. It would be around late 60s. And I get into the office, sit down, and then he looked at the report in front of him and goes, "Oh, you have fibroids. You will need to do surgery." Just like that. No empathy, no cushioning the news for somebody who is just learning that she has fibroids for the first time. And I'm still trying to grasp my head around it, trying to understand, what does this mean? What is the implication? Obviously, it didn't sound like a great thing. and you just blot out, you have to do surgery. I was so scared. I tried not to show it. I'm like, surgery? Please. I don't want to ever have to go under the knife or anything if I can avoid it. And then I said, surgery? He said, yes, that's the best thing you can do. That there's no other option if you leave it. You know, he didn't even go into too many explanations. I said, okay. And then he goes to ask, oh, when are you having a child? I said, I'm not married. Then he goes ahead to ask me, when am I getting married? I said, I don't know. He said, do you have a fiancé? I said, I don't have a fiancé. And then he goes, you don't have anybody. At this age, at 30-something years of age, you're just staying like this. You're not doing anything with somebody. And he had this very surprised look on his face. I'm like, these questions you're asking me and this comment is very invasive, you know, but I tried to maintain my composure. And then when I think he must have seen the reaction on my face, because I find it difficult to hide how I'm really feeling. And he goes, oh, I'm only joking, oh, I'm only joking, oh. Really? Of course, I don't think he was joking, but I think at that time he had realized that he was out of line with the things that he said. And then he goes, okay, so when you're ready for the surgery, you can come back and fix a date. I said, thank you. And I left his office. I went home. Throughout that day, it was a difficult time, because I'm like, what is going on? What did I do wrong? I've been trying to take care of myself. Like, where is this thing coming from? What is the implication? What does this mean? Surgery? I was so scared. Then I called one of my closest friends at the time, whose sister is a doctor, and she calmed me down and told me not to worry and gave me a doctor's number and told me to call him, doctor that her sister had recommended, and then I should call him and schedule a visit to his clinic. I called him. I scheduled a visit for, I think, a few days afterwards, and I planned to be there. Now, at that time, I discovered that a close relation of mine also had fibroids. She had communicated that she had fibroids, and her doctor had told her that she needed to have surgery. So I called her and I said, I'm going to see this doctor for a second opinion, and I would like you to come with me. And so we both went to his clinic, I think the weekend of that week, the end of the week, the weekend. And we got to the clinic. He asked that we do another scan. Another scan was conducted for both of us at the clinic. And then he confirmed what my relations doctor had said, that she indeed needed to have surgery done, because the position of her fibroids, they are sitting dangerously close to vital organs, and they have to be removed as soon as possible. But for me, he said that since I'm not having any symptoms and it's not affecting my quality of life or anything, I might decide not to do anything and just watch it and just keep on watching it to see if anything changes. And he goes ahead to tell me that, except in cases where I feel like from a self-esteem point of view, if I feel like there are people who decide that, oh, I don't like the way my stomach is big, my stomach is looking too big, people are asking me if I'm pregnant or not, then they decide to do that surgery, even if there are no symptoms or side effects. That's another reason why I may decide to want to do surgery. But My interaction with this doctor was so different from my interaction with the consultant in the previous hospital and even the first doctor I spoke to. He was very empathetic, took his time to explain things to me, answered all my questions, which is what I expect from anyone in the medical profession. I want to believe that if you say that you have interest in having a career in the medical profession, be it a doctor or a nurse, it means that you genuinely care for people and genuinely want to take care of people. And so there's a place of empathy. But no, the two doctors I spoke in the first hospital I went to, my interaction with them, it was devoid of emotion from their part. And so yes, we finished the consultation. Before I left, he wrote me a prescription to say, in the event that your monthly flow starts to get heavy, you might want to take this medication before, at the start, and at the end of your period, right? And wrote it down for me, even though I knew that I was not going to take that medication because I don't like medication. I'm that person that will only take medication as a last resort, and it has to be really serious. Even when I have headaches or body pain, except it's now affecting my ability to do the things I need to do, that's the only time I'll probably consider taking a painkiller. I don't like medication. And so I thanked him and we left his hospital. When I got back home, I still wasn't okay. I was scared. I was genuinely scared of having to have any kind of surgery. And over the next couple of weeks into months, I started to research on the internet, read up anything, search on how to manage fibroids. And there were a lot of conflicting information on the internet. There's a school of thought that believes that fibroids cannot be shrunk, the growth cannot stop, you need to do surgery to take them out. There's also the school of thought that believes that certain types of food or diets can shrink fibroids, or certain things you do, lifestyle changes, can shrink fibroids. The information was all over the place, and I kept on having to go back, reading. And then I started, reading different things, food you should eat, food you should not eat with fibroids. And I started to make a list of what I should take out from my diet and what I shouldn't take out from my diet. Now, this was what I was researching and I found. My own personal experience, I also started to discover that certain foods that I eat aggravated my fibroids. And that was where my hate relationship with sugar started from. Now, there was I remember a day that I was sitting down on my couch watching TV and I had a bowl of popcorn in front of me. I have a sweet tooth. I've always had a sweet tooth. Popcorn with sugar, of course. I didn't make it. I bought it from a store. And from an outlet, it was freshly made. And as I was eating the popcorn, I could feel movements in my lower belly area where my fibroids, fibroids in the front region of my body were sitting. I could feel movement. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It was as if something was is it a pulse now, or like I could feel movements there. I was like, this is not normal, right? Could it be that this thing I'm eating is directly impacting my fibroid? Because it was immediately, it was in the moment. It wasn't like afterwards. It was right there and then when I was eating it. Then another day I was having coconut flakes and I always have coconut flakes for when I'm making my homemade granola, when I'm not buying my dear friend Dio's Delight granola. She makes the best granola, best Greek yogurt, best healthy snacks in the country. And I think you can also find it outside Nigeria. Shout out to Dio's Delight. It was also a coconut flakes I was eating, by the way. And at some point whilst eating it, I started feeling some discomfort. The same, similar to what I felt when I was eating the popcorn, because the coconut flakes has a bit of sugar, right? And then I went back and I started researching. And I saw where it was said, oh, sugar and processed foods is not good for fibroids. And literally over the next couple of weeks, my fibroids got bigger. I could feel it. It's my body. I'm so in tune with my body. I've gotten to a place where I'm so in tune with my body that I can tell when certain things are out of place, right? And of course, even I could feel like the bulge was getting bigger. I could feel that things were happening there. And that was the cue for me to say, you know what, now I need to be intentional about what I eat. I cut out sugar totally from my diet. I cut out processed foods from my diet. I cut out white carbs from my diet. Not all white carbs. I cut out white flour from my diet. I cut out bread to a certain extent. I didn't realize then that apart from the white flour that is used in making bread, there was also sugar in it. It didn't click. But later on, I also realized that when I eat bread, because of the sugar, I also have the same effect. So I cut that out. Processed food, sugar. I cut out red meat from my diet. I generally don't like beef, and I don't even eat it. But I have a soft spot for goat meat. When I'm making my soups, my local soups, I only use goat meat. I don't like beef. So I even cut off goat meat and I said I won't eat it. I focused on eating chicken and fish, and even chicken, because I prefer to buy live chicken. Then they kill it there and clean it. I also started looking for chicken that are naturally or grass-fed, not chicken that have been fed with hormones, just trying to reduce as much as possible, just trying to make sure I'm eating clean. And when I also researched on red meat rather, being an issue, it was more around the red meat from cows that have been fed with hormones, or red meat from animals that have been fed with hormones. And so I cut off all these things from my diet. I also cut off wine. So I drink sweet wine, a habit that I developed when I was living in South Africa in 2019. Living in a country that is blessed with a lot of vineyards and produces its own wine. Wine is relatively cheap in South Africa, and so I developed this taste of having a nice lunch or dinner with a glass of red or white sweet wine. Not all the time, but mostly on weekends and some evenings when I just want to relax. And it's not even so much about the alcohol for me, it's really about the sweetness, right? More than, in fact, it was never even about the alcohol, it was about the sweetness. And then when I came back to Nigeria, I also still kept the habit, but I reduced the frequency at which I drank the wine, because the cost wasn't the same as when I was in South Africa. But I still bought the wine, my favorite brand, and I would always have white, at least one bottle each of white and red wine in my house. So I stopped that as well. It was part of the things that I researched on, and obviously wine also contains sugar, so I stopped. And apart from the sugar, alcohol generally is not good for when you're trying to balance your hormone. It's not even good for your health. It's best that you just stay away from alcohol. And then what else did I do? Yeah, so that was it from a place of nutrition. No. So in addition, I started also checking the quality of foods I was eating. Before then, I'd obviously been intentional about my diet, but more so than ever, I started making sure that with regards to carbohydrates, I was focusing on complex carbs. I reduced my intake of rice. I didn't even used to eat rice a lot then, but I even reduced it. I stopped eating, reduced white carbs. And then, what else did I do? Yeah, then I discovered the importance of cruciferous vegetables, your cabbages, your broccoli. For me, I used to eat broccoli, but when the price started skyrocketing in my country, it's not grown in Nigeria, it's being imported. I left it, and it took me a while before I got to a place where I could prepare broccoli in a way that I'm able to eat it and it's tasteful. And so I let it go and I focused on cabbage. I'd always eaten cabbage in my vegetable salad or in my coleslaw. But once I discovered the superfood that cabbage is, I made it my best friend. Like, now I intentionally made sure that I have cabbage in my house all the time. I would buy cabbage, I would shred them or cut them, and I'll put them in my fridge. I'll put it in my fridge rather. And I eat cabbage with almost anything. When I'm frying my eggs, I sprinkle it towards the end. When I'm eating foods, I add it to my food, just shredded like that. When I'm making salads, I would mix your coleslaw with carrots and that. Then I would put little cream or no cream. I used to put cream, right? Used to make my concoction of ketchup and mayonnaise and with lemon. But once I discovered later that mayonnaise and ketchup contains added sugar, I reduced my intake of those drastically, to the extent that I think my ketchup is either expired at the end of last month or it is about to expire. My mayonnaise is still good till Q1 next year. But I stopped. I'm like, no, these are the things that we eat and not realize that there are hidden sugars in them. Then what else did I do? Yeah. So pretty much with nutrition. Now, another thing I discovered, or when I was researching, I found out was that managing your weight and having an adequate body weight, not being overweight, is also great for preventing fibroids and also managing fibroids. And if you're overweight, fibroids tend to thrive in overweight people versus people who have moderate to slim weight. And you need to ensure that you're keeping your weight to a considerable size. So exercise is your friend. You need to do a lot of exercise. You need to continue to ensure that you are burning calories and in great shape. And so for me, that I've been on my fitness journey for the past 12 years. Before then, I would say it was about 9 years by then. But I'd always, exercise was part of me. I have a fitness lifestyle, but I saw a greater reason and an added motivation to keep at it. I now had another why to continuing on this lifestyle that I've been on since 2012. I have a video where I spoke about my why, and I think the name of the video is 3 hacks that have helped me stay consistent in 12 years. Please look out for that video in my channel, watch it. It would give you a lot of insights to how I started my journey and what has helped me to be consistent for 12 years. Okay, back to my story. So this was a greater reason not to even miss out on exercise. My cardio classes, my aerobic classes, I would always go for it. Whether I'm in the gym or at home, I don't miss it for anything. So it was added motivation to ensure that, you know what, I need to remain slim. I've always been slim, but now I also need to ensure that I stay slim because it will help me manage or stop the growth of these fibroids. And so all of these things that I have done, another thing again that I want to mention is I think there is also a place of, I think stress there's a place for stress management when you have fibroids. Now that I'm even talking about stress, I know that earlier this year or sometime last year, I was thinking back to how I was just wondering that where did this fibroid thing came from, just out of the blues. I know that a lot of times it's said that there is really no one really understands what causes it. It's just that it's prevalent in African women. It's prevalent in African women. And I was just wondering, like, from where? I've not had it all these years. Where did it come from? Then I remember that in 2020 was the most stressful period of my life, both personally and career-wise. It was such a hectic and stressful year for me. That year, end of Q1 2020, in the midst of COVID, just when COVID started, was when I came back to my home country after being away for a year. And it was a bit of a struggle and hassle and stress to settle back into the country, looking for a place that I would live, getting another car for myself, just try to settle back, and also juggling work because I was still working, and it was hectic. It was hectic, and it wasn't until March, end of March, exactly 1 year after, that I was able to move into my apartment, my present apartment. And the drama of getting a place that entire year is story for another day. But because I got somewhere mid Q3, and then by the time I was supposed to move in, there was a new discovery and I couldn't move in. And then I was going through the hassles of trying to get the monies I've paid back, had to employ the services of a lawyer. It was a lot. And even when I got the place, I would leave because I moved back in with my parents when I go back. I would leave my parents' house most mornings very early to try to get this apartment before 8 a.m. just so that I'll be there for when the artisans that need to do a couple of work in the apartment come in. So that I will be there for them to come in and also be there before my meetings start. And most of my meetings start around 9 or 8:30, depending on if it's a regional meeting or a local meeting. And yeah, most times I would be there till 8 p.m. in the evening, depending on if the workers are still doing stuff. And then I'm driving home, I'm getting home late. I do the same thing over again the next day or 2 days after or every other day. It was so stressful. And the two places, my parents' house and where I got the apartment, they weren't close to each other. It was a distance, right? And so I went through that for a long time, for a while. Before then, By the time I had even moved in my stuff, moved in a lot of things, it was just moving myself and my personal effect, and yeah, and everything just scattered pretty much. Anyways, and then from a work perspective, yes, we were working from home then, but much didn't change because the company I was working with at the time, we've always had agile way of working. So for us, work continues. Whilst I know a lot of organizations were trying to find their way around this new way of working, it was like business as usual for us. It's just that now everybody was working from home versus you working from home a couple of times within the work here. And then there were gaps. At some point, there were gaps in there were gaps in the team, not my immediate team, but like the extended team that I was, that my job responsibility covered. And so I was filling in for multiple people. At some point, I think I was filling in for 2 roles in addition to my role. So that was also like a lot of stress on me. It was a lot. It was really a lot. And so that's why when I think back, I keep on asking myself, I say, is it because of the stress I went through? That was a lot of stress that my body was not used to. Could it have been what gave rise to this abnormal growth, which is really what fibroids is in the body? I don't have the answer to it, but I just can't stop thinking about it, right? And so I also started, but I think that there's actually a place, because I also think when my fibroids started growing, when I felt it start growing or getting bigger, in addition to still eating whatever I was eating and eating sugar that was actually, because I researched that sugar is like food to fibroids. So as you're eating sugary and processed food, you are pretty much giving them room to continue to grow. You're giving them things to constantly feed on, because I feel like when they don't have things to feed on, they would stop growing or shrink and all. But when you keep on giving them what they want, the food that they like to eat, then wow, free playground to continue to play and be whatever they want to be, right? And I also discovered that when I wasn't managing my stress well, everything cumulative, I saw that it was growing. And so I was intentional about doing a better job around managing my stress levels and, setting boundaries, trying to take out things from my life that were not adding to me, and basically being in a place where I could say that my stress levels were not high or out of place, because it's almost impossible to eliminate stress entirely from our lives, but just doing a better job at managing it so that it's not at that point where my well-being is being impacted because of the stress that I'm going through. So yes, that's basically it, honestly. Modifying my diet, taking out sugar, processed foods, things that were not adding to me, and secondly, managing my stress levels. Thirdly, ensuring that I continue to stay consistent with my exercises and my fitness lifestyle. That was how I was able to stop my fibroids from growing and get it to a level where it is not noticeable visibly. It is not, is that even correct English? Where it's not visible, and it is me who has my body that knows where it is. And even most times I can't even, for those who have fibroids, you know that it's when your bladder is full that you can be able to tell, or you can feel the bulge where it is. Regarding the foods that are taken out of my diet, when I was making all of the changes that I needed to do to keep my fibroids in check, I slowly introduced back some of the foods that I had taken out last year, specifically goat meat. I told you all that I love goat meat, and that is what I love that's the protein that I love to prepare my local soups with. And so I introduced it back. I don't eat goat meat as frequently as I eat chicken or fish. I eat mostly chicken, then maybe goat meat, then fish in terms of the quantity or frequency. And so I introduced it back, and I've seen that it doesn't really make any much of difference anymore. I don't even know if it did at a point in time, but I just decided then that I was going to take out any meat from my diet. And so I've introduced back my goat meat. I'm enjoying my goat meat, right? And what else did I introduce? I think that's it. Sugar I still don't take, but once in a while I still, because I add honey when I'm making my granola, but very little quantity. And then maybe things like finger foods, like small chops, I enjoy those when I go out for parties or something. These are local finger foods that we have. I also reduce the quantity because I know they're made with added sugars. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I still don't drink red wine. What else? Yeah. And then every other thing. For me, it wasn't really a big change regarding my diet because I was already eating clean and eating foods, high quality foods. So it was just these few tweaks that I needed to do, especially with sugar and processed foods. And I think those were the ones that had the biggest impact on helping me to keep my fibroids from growing. As I was making all of the changes to my diet and ensuring that I don't slack on my fitness goals and my exercise routines and managing my stress levels adequately, I was also constantly praying. I was talking to God, asking Him to help me, to heal me, and I believe that I have been healed completely. So prayer and works, doing the work, doing all of the changes that I needed to do to my lifestyle, and praying to God and trusting Him for complete healing, which I believe that He has given me, were the things that helped me to be able to manage my fibroids, even get it to shrink, because there was a time it was growing and it has gone significant. It is significantly smaller than it was previously, and also stop it from growing. So ultimately, there is a bigger place of prayer in my story and my journey with managing my fibroids. I just thought to share this with you guys. For anyone, it may be you who is watching this that has fibroids, dealing with fibroids, and you may take one or two inspiration or insights from what I've said, or it could be somebody in your life who has fibroids, who you want to share this video with, and it could help them. Please, I would like to put a disclaimer that I am not a medical professional. I am not giving these things I'm sharing are not based on, it's not coming from a medical point of view. It is coming from my own personal experience, my personal opinion as a result of my personal experience. I did my own personal research and I did the changes in my life that worked for me. It may not necessarily work for you. And I would like to say that no two persons' journey is the same. Please, if you have fibroids, speak to your doctor, speak to a consultant. Let them advise you on the best way to manage your own situation. Don't listen to me. Don't watch this video and take action based on my own experience in isolation. Please speak to a professional And whatever your doctor advises you to do, please try and heed to it. I would also advise that you seek a second and even a third opinion, like I did and like my relation did, right? If I didn't seek a second opinion, imagine if I had just gone ahead to do surgery for what I probably did not need surgery for. And I also read that even if you take out fibroids and you don't make the required lifestyle changes like being intentional about your diet, exercise, and managing your stress levels and all that, there's a 50% chance that the fibroids will come back again. So these changes that I did or I made, it's not only for management of fibroids, it's for general health as well. It's to improve our overall wealth and it's to improve our overall health. I don't know what's going on today. It's to improve our overall health, not wealth. And also mostly, especially when it comes to women's health and the struggles that we have with hormonal imbalance and all of those things. But yeah, our power remains that we are women, and no one can take that away from us. So thank you so much for tuning into my channel today. Thank you for being patient. And if you've watched this video to the end, thank you for sitting and staying true to the end. I hope that you've been able to gain a few insights from my story, and please share this video with anyone you feel that would benefit a thing or two from watching this video. And do have a good day and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.